everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Hello, I'm Listening with me, Dani.
And with me, your main host, Woifi. And my sidekick.
I'm just gonna let you continue to say that you're the main host, just so you have a little confidence boost.
No, we're both main hosts.
But I'm the main host.
Yeah.
So today we have a
guest on the podcast.
And, you know, I can't roll my R's. I can if I am not trying.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it just surprises me and comes out when I'm talking in German. Mm-hmm. But so I am really sorry because I'm going to say your name wrong. But this is our guest today is Urmi.
Urmi.
Yeah, I can't do
that.
A
rolling R. Urmi.
My mouth does not work that way.
Hossain. That's her name.
And she will just let, her speak for herself. But I just wanted to read a little blurb about her. Because she just wrote a book and it's basically from that. Anyways. So Urmi is the author of Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. She is a big proponent of self-development and continuous learning. She's an advocate of women's empowerment and dedicates her free time to supporting this cause. Besides being a published author, she loves to speak at events, create content for her blog and YouTube channel, and tutor in English and Italian. Her life philosophy is anything is possible in life if you really want it.
Right.
So let's maybe just get into it.
Yeah. Welcome, Urmi.
So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Maybe you can just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get into the rest of it.
Sounds good. So my name is Urmi. I live in Montreal. I'm a full-time employee in the financial services industry, but I'm also a self-published author. I wrote my first book a couple of months ago. It's called Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. Indeed, I do tell people that I am Italian by birth and Bengali by blood. I was born and raised in Italy. My parents are from Bangladesh. And in this book, I talk about a little bit about my own struggle in finding my identity, trying to fit in, because the two cultures are a little bit like in conflict with each other. So the book, it's all about confessions, reflections. And now, of course, I live in Canada. And I also tell people I am Canadian by law because it's been quite some time. And also during my free time, I do a lot of side hustling. I like to teach people how to speak Italian. I also teach how to speak English, and I do volunteer in many organizations for causes such as women's empowerment, which is something that it's very, very important for me. And I think I enjoy it most of the time because of my own experience growing up as a woman, where there were a lot of like double standards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can I ask what brought you to Canada?
Personal reasons.
Okay.
So you mentioned your book. I haven't read it. I read through like the back pages or the what is it called, like the
foreword? Or?
Right, no, not the forward, like on the back splash. Yeah. And you mentioned it briefly that growing up in Italy and just the cultures clashing. So I wonder what was like a big finding in growing up that you realized that maybe some people want to hear about my story, maybe some people can benefit from reading my story, and what was like the main drive to even go out, publish your own book, because that's pretty cool.
So I would say that the reason why I published my book, it was because I felt it was time for me to like let out all these thoughts that I had that I was dragging from a long time. And I think a lot of the things that happened to me when I was young, they're still happening now, even though I'm like much older. And I think there's always this expectation from society that you are supposed to be a certain way, especially when you are a South Asian woman. people expect you to like do certain things, talk a certain way, dress a certain way. And this was something that I was like not okay with, because it's like, I want to be me. I don't want to be someone that the society is telling me to do. And I read a lot of similar books as well. And I think I was inspired by some of the books that I have read, because I was like, they're telling their story too, which is very similar to my story. So why am I not doing the same thing? And I think I was driven by that. And I think the reason why I wanted to write this book is because I started to realize, especially after moving to Canada, is that there are other people like me. There are other people that struggle with this type of, like, being in two cultures, that we call them third culture kid or something like that. There's an actual concept. And I didn't know about this concept before someone mentioned it to me. And she was like, no, look, there are other people like you. And especially now that the world is like so globalized, you do have people growing up in different cultures. And that's what I was like, if I can talk about this, then I think other people can relate to it, and other people can feel less lonely in this journey. Because in a sense, I did feel a little bit lonely, especially because when I was growing up in Italy, I was the only person that did not look Italian. Like, I was the only immigrant kid, because there was not that many when I was growing up in Italy. So I was struggling to find someone that looked like me. And I had to just integrate myself and educate other people. Like, I had to educate a lot of my Italian friends, because even for them it was new to interact with someone that was not Italian. And so I actually struggle a lot, and sometimes I felt like I was not being understood about certain things, about why I couldn't do certain stuff, why I couldn't go out, why I couldn't dress this certain way, why I couldn't eat certain things. And so I wanted to bring awareness that, everyone struggles with something, especially when it comes to culture. And I wanted to bring awareness about this and make other people feel less lonely in this. And I think there are so many like me, and I noticed it especially after moving to Canada.
Did you find growing up in Italy that even as a kid, did you find that there was a lot of racism and because I know a lot of people think that in Europe, that's not a thing that exists. And for me, that's hard because I saw it in the US, but I also see it in Austria. And I think a lot of people are very blind to it here. And I'm wondering if you had a similar experience in Italy.
No, not me. I never had it. And I would say that I was very lucky enough, because I would say that yes, it was new for a lot of people, especially because I went to a school that was pretty much Catholic, and I was pretty much the only kid, like I was the only immigrant kid there. But people were very open-minded, and they were very accepting, and they were very welcoming. So I think everyone just took this as an opportunity to learn of other cultures. Mm-hmm. And the people that I am still close to, these are my Italian friends, and because they always take the time to really understand me. And I never had any issues of like being discriminated or any racist comments. None of it. No, none of it.
I wish the rest of the world could be that way.
It's not that common, yeah. What was for you publishing the book and for you telling that story? Obviously, that's also very a personal story, and you basically make yourself vulnerable. And technically, people could, throw negative feedback or criticism towards you because you published your story. But what was, let's focus on the positive. What was like something that empowered you after publishing your book and telling your story? What was something that you thought like, oh, thank God I did that, because maybe I helped someone, or maybe people, I don't know, talk to me and ask me certain things?
Well, people look at me differently right now. They're like I can go and tell the world that I'm a self-published author, and they do look at me differently, because I think not everyone is able to do that. Like, I think a lot of people say, okay, I want to write a book, but who does it concretely? And so I didn't tell this to anyone. I was like, you know what, I'm going to write it, and then I'm going to tell the world that I'm writing, that I wrote this book. So a lot of people were very much surprised about me. And I would say that a lot of people were surprised that I was able to talk about it, because I was not comfortable with that. I was so not comfortable with that, because there was always that voice behind my back that was like, you know what, people will say something, people will judge you for it, you know, because it's like you said, I'm being vulnerable and I'm being raw honest about it. Like I'm literally telling you all my thoughts. But I knew that it was the right thing to do, because the more I kept it inside, the more I felt like I'm not helping anyone by doing this. I'm not helping myself. I'm not helping other people. And I feel like for me, just to write it was very therapeutic, because I let all those thoughts out. And it was my own self-accomplishment, you know, that I can say that I wrote this book. And of course, I was judged. I was very much judged by whatever I wrote. But you know what? There will be people that are judging you, but then there will be people that will be there to like reward you, or will be there to like how do you say? They will be there to praise you. You know, they will be like, okay, you were able to do something. And I did get a little bit of both. And I think my job was to just cut out the negativity, because negative people will always have something to say, and I think there is a lack of education right there. But then people that are there to support you, they will always encouraging you to do these things. So I did get a lot of feedback from a lot of my friends that, wow, you were able to write a book. It's a big accomplishment. I made it, and some of my closest friends read it too, and they were like, it is a true and sad story, unfortunately, that, you know, as a South Asian woman, you have to go through this like double standards of, you know, gender inequality and the expectation that it's there. And then you're struggling also to fit in a very Western culture, which is open-minded. But they were like, you did a good thing by getting it out there. And I think it just helps me as a person to, I think I took a lot of courage. It took me a lot of courage to do that. But I did get like a big drive that I do want to write a second one eventually. And I think the second one will be more based about my life in Canada, because it did really help me help to shape my identity too. And now I would say that for me, writing this book was just an acceptance of myself, and accepting and embracing both cultures, which was something that I was never able to like tell the world what exactly I am. Like people would ask me, where are you from? And I never knew how to give them an answer. And I also struggled a lot when it was like filling out papers and they asked your nationality, and I was like, I'm not really sure what to answer. And sometimes I would put other, because I was like, I'm not one, I'm two. And so I struggle a lot with like simple things that people might not be dealing with. So yeah.
Maybe you can just briefly talk about some of the things you talk about in your book about the two different cultures, and some of the struggles that you had in trying to identify with both, or maybe not wanting to identify with one more than the other.
Yes. So in the book, it's a very short book, but in every chapter like deals with something, like a different aspect of my life. So for instance, I talk about what it felt like, let's say, going to school in Italy, or what it felt like having like a lot of Italian friends, or what it felt like dating. So for instance, like in the Italian culture is very like open-minded, whereas the South Asian one is a little bit like closed-minded. They're very conservative. There are a lot of restrictions in like things that you can do or not. And when I was growing up, there was a lot of restriction. There were a lot of restriction on me on how many things I was able to do. And there was a big conflict in that. So for instance, let's say all my friends, they would hang out all together after school, or, you know, they would go for play at the park. They would go for like ice cream. They would go and study at someone's house. I was not allowed to do it, because there was that many restrictions. First of all, I was a girl, so there was this concern that, you know, if people see you around, they might say things. And if I was going out, then I had to be home at a certain time. Whereas I feel like if I was a boy, things would have been different. So I struggled with that. And I was never, like, I never spoke up about this. I never went against anyone about it. I was okay to do all this because I thought it was normal. I thought that it's okay if I'm being told these things. But I think the more when I was growing up and the more I thought about it, I think this has been haunting me, because I started to realize that, you know what, it wasn't right. It wasn't right, and I wanted to have a teenage life like other people. So that's one example where I feel like there was a big conflict. Another one was, you know, like, for instance, to date someone. And like, I remember I would go to school and all my friends had a story to share. They would be like, yeah, I'm dating this guy, la 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 la. And I would be like, yeah, I honestly have no one. And I think it's because it's pretty much forbidden and I couldn't do any of these things. It was wrong for me to talk to a guy. There was this concern that, you know, people find you to do these things. If you're talking to a guy, it's like forbidden, it's against the religion, even though none of it could be true. So I struggle with that too. So a lot of the times I was not talking to anyone. I wasn't talking to any guys because it was a big conflict. So that's another example as well. You know, being an older sister, there is a lot of expectation. Like I'm the older sister, for instance, there is an expectation that I have to fulfill a certain role. I have to be, you know, the golden kid who's always, you know, obedient, doing whatever the parents say. You're not supposed to like speak back or, you know, just you're not supposed to have an opinion about it. And that was wrong. The more I think about it, I felt like this was not right because I also had an opinion that I wanted to share, but I was not allowed to do that. And again, it goes back to the fact that, you know, you're a woman, you're not allowed to say things, you are supposed to be a certain way. And sometimes I actually struggle a lot with it. And I felt it was all normal. I honestly felt this was normal for me. It was normal that it was all happening. But when I look back and I look at the generation now, I'm thinking now it was so not right. I wish I was given that opportunity to be who I wanted to be. So I feel like often I was just performing a role that wasn't myself, I would say.
We talk about mental health a lot on our podcast, and I mean, growing up and finding out all those things about yourself and maybe, you know, all the double standards and also, you know, trying to be the person you wanted to be. Did it have some like negative impact on your mental health? Did you struggle with something like that?
I did because I think I'm carrying this trauma within me. And I never wanted to talk about it with anyone because I felt like it was wrong. I felt like it was wrong for me to talk about it. And only later on, like really later on in my life, and I'm talking about a couple of years ago, I started to talk about this with a friend, and I shared a lot with her. And she actually opened up and shared the same thing as well. And this is where she's like, when we try to please people, it just has a negative impact in our mental health because it just, you know, you start to realize that some of these things become toxic and you're not able to live your life the way you want to live it because you are trying to make other people happy and then you suffer inside from it. So I actually did start to talk about it with a friend, and she has been really helpful. And she often tells me like one way to like get your thoughts out is to journal. So this is one thing that I also started to do to, you know, deal with stress in general, to let out all the negativity. I tend to journal, and, you know, I have like guided journal where I talk about things, like I just let out all my thoughts, or I talk about the things I'm grateful for, and it helps, you know, to bring a little bit of calmness in me. And I do speak about it with her, and she also said, you know, sometimes it's good to talk to a therapist because it will help you to heal yourself and to accept these things. And I think often the issue with the South Asian community is that it's never enough. Whatever you do, it's never enough. So there is that you can reach, I don't know, a certain level, but then they bring the standard higher because it's never enough for anyone, whatever you have reached. And it always goes back to like hurting you inside because you start feeling guilty because you're like, okay, I'm not feeling validated. People are not happy with me. But I think this has to stop. It has to stop. I think as human being, whatever we do, it's more than enough. And this is what I'm trying to like accept myself. And I'm trying not to feel guilty for saying whatever I'm saying, for doing whatever I'm doing, because I'm trying to choose myself first. And I think it goes back to like, you know, the whole mental health thing, because it does have a lot of impact. It does have a lot of negative repercussion at the end when you start to have all these toxic elements near you. Yeah.
Have you found that the relationships in your life has it been a struggle, the way that you are choosing to live your life, which, by the way, is awesome that you're choosing to live your life how you want to. But has that been difficult with your relationships, like with your parents or your family who come from these more traditional backgrounds?
It's been very difficult. It's been very, very tough because I feel like I'm not being accepted the way I want to be accepted, and I'm not able to be who I want to be. And I think there is a lot of expectation from them as me being a woman, and they want me to do certain things the way they want them to be done, which is not something that is in line with who I am. And so I am just doing my own thing, and I'm just hoping that they're okay with it. And there has been a lot of struggle with a lot of people that I have in my life, and they are seeing a different side of me that they don't seem okay with. But I also don't want to live my life as a lie. I just want to be me, and I just want to do the things that I love. And I think that's the most important thing after all, because we're not created to make other people happy. We're created to make ourselves happy, and that happiness translates in other forms, and that's how you make other people happy. But if you're not making yourself happy, then you will always suffer from it. And I think I was doing that for a while, where I was like choosing to make other people happy, but now I shifted towards myself, even though I know that it might have some negative repercussion there where people might just go away. But I think whoever loves me and whoever is willing to accept me, they will always come back to me. This is how I see it.
I agree.
Yeah. One more thing before we let you go. What would be something that you would tell someone who is maybe in a similar situation to, gain like a little motivation or even positivity in that situation, to maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel, that not everything might be that, dark?
So I can tell you from my own experience, and I can tell you how I got my own strength. And it was more from this book that I read, which was basically talking about fear and how we should see fear as an ally. And there was this quotation that said, "Fear is the light that is meant to guide us." And I really resonated a lot with that quotation, because I was like, I often used to see fear as my enemy, as I would say a wall that was not allowing me to grow. But I started to see fear as more my friend, because I do think that fear is there. It is that tool that is supposed to bring me to the light. And this is how I've been tackling everything in my life. I've been following that fear. So every time I am fearful of something, I'm just like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And I try to follow it, because I think it does help me to evolve into a better person. I just do the things that I love. And I think, judgment, the fear of, being rejected will always be there. These things will always be there, because people will always have something to say. But I do think at the end, you just want to live your life like truthfully, and you just want to do you, and you want to be your authentic self. And I think often we just perform to be a role, but I think you want to perform to be yourself. I think that's the most important thing. And I do want to encourage people to just take action and do whatever they love, because you want to live a life full of passions, and not just a mundane life where like it's just the same thing every day, and do things to like serve other people. So I would say that's what I would I would say to your last question. Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I totally agree. Yeah, thank you really for your time. If people want to find you, where can they find you? Where can they look you up?
So I have a blog. It's called myways.ca. Then I have a YouTube channel, which is my name. It's called Urmi Hossain. I have a LinkedIn profile so people can connect with me there. It's called Urmi Hossain. I have an Instagram account as well, which is called Urma Mio. And lastly, if anyone wants to buy my book, it's available on Amazon, and it's called Discovering Your Identity: A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle.
We'll link all those things down in the description. And yeah, thank you again for being here, for talking to us, for sharing your
story and your time.
Right.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we tried not to talk too much, because she only had a very limited time to speak with us today. So unfortunately, we only had about a 25-minute window
Yeah.
to speak with her. So we wanted to just let her be able to take the floor as much as possible. So we
Yeah.
probably weren't as talkative as we normally are.
Yeah. Also, the audio quality might not be the best. Might not be the best.
We don't know yet as we're recording this. So we'll see.
No, the interview.
Yeah, I
Because-
know, but we haven't really listened to it
I mean-
back yet. So
A little bit, but I just did.
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're still figuring out having guests on perfect setup for us.
Yeah, we're trying to find the best way to do that, but it's
Because
not always easy.
Yeah. But
Anyways.
so just so we're aware.
Yeah. I really liked what she said at the end about, how fear is your friend. And I totally relate to that because I also feel like fear, I know people say that fear is like a great motivator, but I actually don't love looking at it that way. I like it how she put it, where you should look at it as your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that because I think a lot of the best decisions in my life I was terrified to make.
I mean, it's the stepping out of your comfort zone. And
Exactly.
usually outside of your comfort zone is something that you fear
Yeah.
or are uncertain about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or you're afraid of what if it doesn't work out, and a lot of people will let that fear of what if it doesn't work out completely derail them from doing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like my dad, I think, said it best to me when I was thinking about moving to Austria, and it was very sudden and it was very horrifying, and I'm like giving up so much of my life to be with one person in a different country where I don't speak the language. And I was talking to my dad about it, and he said, sure, you could not do it and you would probably still live a great life, but if you don't do it, you might also regret not doing it for the rest of your life, because you'll never know. Maybe it could have been the most amazing thing and you missed out. And so he's like, why not just do it, and maybe it doesn't work out, rather than live with the regret and the not knowing.
What is the verdict?
I don't know yet. No, I'm here for almost 6 years now, so I would say it worked out. Can you believe that? Almost 6 years.
Yeah.
End of January, it'll be 6 years.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Don't worry about it. Yep. Thanks again, Urmi.
Good answer.
Urmi. I really like the name. Urmi.
Me too.
I really like the name. So thanks again for, taking your time, for talking to us, for talking a little bit about your story and your struggles. And if you want to, know more about her, we'll link all her details, as she said, in the description. And if you want to be a guest, if you have an interesting story, something to tell, just hit us up on our Instagram or website, email, whatever.
Yep.
And we will figure out things. And again, if you want to support us, you can head over to our Patreon, other than, subscribing and following the podcast, and also rating the podcast on Apple. And thanks again to Joe, our Patreon.
Thanks, Joe. Golly gee, Joe.
Golly gee.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
I don't know why. It makes me think of, my dad's name is Joe too, so it's not like I've never heard that name. But it makes me think of Anchors Away, because his name is Joe. And do you remember that old movie with Frank Sinatra
Yeah,
and
I know
Gene
Anchors
Kelly?
Away. Yeah.
And the little kid in there is like such a stereotypical like 50s
Yeah.
kid or 40s kid or whatever it was. And every time he sees Joe, he's like, Joe!
I remember the kid from The One Woman.
Yeah.
I remember.
If you want a great movie, just watch Anchors Away. It's great.
it's
It's
a good
old.
movie.
It's lovely. It's
Good movie.
just beautiful. Just watch it.
That's it.
That's it.
Goodbye.